are a little bit low on time, 15 seconds on the reserve clock, and we're only about halfway through this draft, so not sure if that's going to have too much of an impact on them. Different teams sort of respond differently, but having that clock sort of ticking down on you as we get into really some of the more stressful picks might have some sort of rushed effect for them. But for now, TOOBASED able to get their hands on the Enchantress, so picking up what I'm assuming is going to be the second support for them.
Yeah, that, and we might see Jubei end up on it. It's pretty good versus the Broodmother in lane just because you have that impetus, you're able to zone her off of that creep wave pretty naturally. At the same time, though, while you're not the easiest target for the Broodmother to kill once you finally get that level 6, and you do have the spiders, they are all affected by Untouchable as well. It does feel like you might just end up dying. Once you get that Orchid, you just get hit up by 2, maybe 3 of those the spider blasts, and if you pop, you pop. There's not much you can do about it. And with the Luna as well, they have a pretty good base for magic damage. We're probably going to see it paired up. We could see it paired up with the Grimstroke. We saw TOOBASED actually employ that strategy the other day. At the same time, we could be seeing the Lion. There are a lot of heroes that we could go for here. But instead, they're going to go for the Shadow Demon, pick up a little bit of save. You've got SD Luna, have that sort of endless push. And I really am excited to see another team run the Broodmother. We really only have seen TOOBASED and D2 Hustlers run it. In both of those games, they just kind of become the monster. They weren't too successful with it the other day on the TOOBASED side, but Divine Llama getting the Greaves, getting the Pipe, just so that way his spiders could survive, and just tanking up versus the towers. I wonder what we're going to see Vitaly go this game.
Right. And yeah, that is actually something I just kind of realized. I was talking about Vitaly sort of being one of the other players who played Brood here, but it is worth noting those Brood matches that he played, I think were back in Pro Circuit, not actually in this event. So you hadn't really seen him on it before. For those who might have been a little bit confused, Vitaly is familiar with the Brood, but not in the context of maybe this particular tournament. But they will deploy him on it here. As you said, whatever the item build is for the Brood, that could very well sort of set the tone for Hokori here in terms of how fast they play, how aggressively they try to move forward as well. Meanwhile, on the TOOBASED side, they're going to go in for the Gyrocopter with that 4th pick. Now, somebody's moving in terms of their position, and I'm not entirely sure if it's going to be the Gyro or the Lina. We've seen the Gyrocopter, I think, in the carry position more than we've seen the Lina mid, but not by much, I would say.
And I agree with Hokori. They're looking for a Monkey's hero. It's most likely going to be a Boris Gyrocopter having that flat cannon, trying to lane up well versus the Broodmother. We saw the Gyro 5 playing versus the Broodmother the other day, and it is very obnoxious with that missile. You always are able to see her in the trees. You get a little bit more vision that you otherwise would have. And yeah, Sand King, Tidehunter, just taking out Monkey's heroes, which will mean that this could be Monkeys slotting into, I guess, whatever hero they're going to pick now, but that does mean Annihilate is going to be that Viper, which we'll have to see what Analog wants to play versus it. I know Analog doesn't like playing versus the Viper. We've seen him sort of struggle in those lanes, but at the same time, I feel like he's going to be able to sort of get the buy. And if Analog isn't the sort of key hero in this game, he has the Luna, he has that Broodmother, so he can really rely on his boys this time around. And I'm glad we see the Tiny. Tiny is going to feel pretty good, which sort of breaks the precedent as well, where now maybe Monkeys is going to be that Viper, and that's sort of the flexibility of that Viper finally coming into the play as TOOBASED finally cement in their lineup.
Yeah, I think we've sort of got things a little bit more cleared up for them with that tiny pick. Meanwhile, for Hokori, going in for the Wind Ranger for Analog here, so more mobility, a heck of a lot more damage with that Wind Ranger pickup as well. So we have seen what this Wind Ranger is capable of in that mid position. A lot of games where it just straight up sort of takes over in terms of that damage output. So that is something TOOBASED are going to have to be a little bit concerned with as this game moves on. Just how much are they going to give up to Analog? And well, if you try to sort of focus in on slowing the Wind Ranger down, how much are you then giving up to the Luna and the Broodmother in exchange? So really a situation where they're going to have to be worried across the board about what Hokori can do to them with these cores.
Yep, precisely. And with the Broodmother, you have a mid laner now that has that walkdown, you have that Shackle shot, you're going to be able to rotate to their lanes. And if you're Boris, you have to feel a little bit scared on this Gyrocopter. And yeah, just waiting for him to pick up his hero because there is that very easy rotation that Analog can make. And we do see Monkeys Forever slotting in on that Viper. So picking it up really, even though we saw the Tiny and we could probably very easily make the call that that Tiny is going to be iAnnihilate's hero, you still have that matchup on the Viper where, sure, you're going to eat a Viper Strike, but you're going to win run away. You don't need to worry about the poison attack. You can pretty much ignore him, and you're so immobile on that Viper hero that that's another lane that Analog, if the opportunity does arise, he can always sort of go back to. So the options are there for Analog if that mid lane does just become that farm fest that we usually see with the Tiny, where maybe you get that Javelin and then immediately start making plays with the Focus Fire, while the Tiny is sort of trapped in his own lane, trying to farm that small camp, trying to get that Blink Dagger before the 13-14 minute mark.
Yeah, lots of options just straight up for Hokori. Obviously going to give them a lot of flexibility with how they really want to approach this. So it looks like they put themselves in a pretty solid position here so far, as we are just going to be moments away from loading into this one. Game 2 getting underway. Hokori hoping for a 2-0 sweep here as they are looking to keep their shot at an upper bracket spot alive. Meanwhile, for TOOBASED, that ship has sailed. They will be going down to the lower bracket, but they've still got an opportunity to play spoiler for Hokori, try and pull them into the lower bracket alongside their own squad, and on top of that, just try and build some momentum here across maybe this final series of 2 to 3 games for them. So we'll see how it plays out, but as of right now, it feels like Hokori have put themselves in a nice spot as we do get this game underway. Vitaly just going to straight up make his way up top. So no funny business, no lane swapping, anything along those lines. Just going to be a relatively standard setup, although on the other side of things, there's about 5 heroes making their way down bot for 2-base. So they may look to push their way into the south side jungle. We see the line being drawn there by Flea. They're going to get all the way across that south side and look to potentially wrap around onto their opponents.
Yeah, and Flea, oh, they're actually cutting all of the trees bottom. There's a Quelling Blade on the Viper. What is happening here? Are they going to stick Boris down there and then hope for the flat cannon? Or this is a peculiar lane setup for sure. This could also be them wanting to get rid of all the trees so you don't have to worry about that undying. You can't really approach the Lena or the Viper if there aren't any trees there, but I mean, they are just tree cutting squad. They're just having a massacre here.
We don't
Ooh.
really see that much of an emphasis on it usually, as Jubei, that's... okay, pretty far across the river. Almisho's going to hit him up with Disruption. Good LSA in from Flea, though. That will stun up too, but Jubei might still be in some trouble. Lumiere did come in with the Lucent Beam, but at that point they would have had to basically push across the river themselves, and they weren't quite willing to go that far. So Jubei going to cop a little bit of damage there, but he will fall back. But that means he's got Nature's Attendance at level 1. That's not going to feel great at the start of this lane.
And it looks like they're actually going to merge into a tri-lane situation top, and bottom lane is just going to be Vitaly. And you have Decay, you have Disruption, you have Lucent Beam. I don't think they're really going to stick up here for maybe a little cute kill. And you know that Jubei has the Nature's Attendant, so we'll see how long it takes for... yeah, Elmisha's just going to show himself. So I wonder if they're going to stick it. And I guess this isn't the worst case scenario. Vitaly is going to get a lot of XP just because Monkeys Forever, you push the wave into the Broodmother pretty much constantly up until you get that level 3. Then you can start to hold the wave back. But I guess in this situation, you sort of got what you wanted if you're 2-based. Vitaly doesn't have those tree lines to play around in sort of available to him. This is a peculiar start for 2-base, but I guess it's working. This is much stranger than anything I've seen so far.
Yeah, definitely not standard by any means here. And based on the fact that they were sort of cutting the trees back at the start of this one, maybe they sort of saw the lane swap coming. That feels a little sort of big brain for them, considering we didn't really see any indication that this tri-lane was coming out until after the bounty rune spawn. But 2-base sort of maybe getting a soul read on their opponent, so to speak. And this is weird, but as you said, it could very well work out for them. So if it's going to if it's going to sort of stand to benefit them, then why not? But very
Well, in the
rarely.
Brood, it can't approach. You see, he
Yeah.
is struggling to get anything done here. Oh, he missed the
Oh,
Bola on the creep wave, unfortunately. But I guess Vitaly is going to have a pretty bad time, but now Monkey's, he's got a full creep wave on him. They're just going to try and give this Brood absolutely nothing. I mean, the Broodmother player trying to completely shut down the Broodmother, this is, it almost feels like karma.
Yeah, I mean, if there's anyone, right, who knows how to really shut down the Brood, it would be the one who plays it the most. So, interesting plan out from TOOBASED so far. Meanwhile, up in the top lane, yeah, Jubei's getting in some trouble. So, Hokori, at the end of the day, sure, the Brood is going to have a little bit of difficulties down bot, but that tri-lane up top still has that sort of aggressive potential as they do jump in. However, to get that kill, Gardic does throw the Tombstone down, so it will get them first blood, but they're not exactly going to be able to make that play very consistently, given that long cooldown, well, at all levels, but particularly at level 1. So it's a good play in from them at the start, but I don't know if they're going to be able to do that too often from sort of this point forward.
Yeah, and pushes the wave into Boris, so he does just get those last hits. The pull will come through, and Jubei does need to be very careful. He does have the enchant now, but they're really just putting all of their resources into shutting down Boris while Vitaly struggles bottom, and there isn't much he can do, but this also isn't the best aggressive lane. Unless you get the body blocks coming in from El Misho, Undying Luna, you don't really have that spear or that stun or that split earth. You don't have this setup.
Yeah, I think but the best they've really got is the Lucent, as Vitaly going to get himself picked off down bot. Flea hits him up with the LSA. Monkeys is in for the damage, and this is working for TOOBASED. They have sort of shut down the Brood. She's got 7 last hits so far, and that death is going to be an even more significant setback. So I think they may have cracked the code to a certain extent, at least early on. We'll see what happens when the Brood maybe begins to sort of rotate back into the jungle, but for now, not going to be able to get a whole lot out of the lane through the first couple of minutes. Still using that bola to try and secure last hits.
And we do see, yeah, I think Flea might be just a little bit off the mark from stealing this bounty rune from an analog. And actually, he can't kill him. He has the water rune, he has the wind run, but still putting pressure, getting those stacks off. And that's why we like to see those ranged heroes playing in that 4 position. Always get the stacks. The stacks are so important.
Yeah, so.
Oh, and top? Gardic?
What's going on here? Gardic is, well,
This
trying to
feels a little
dance
bit
around
greedy.
his own tower. Yeah, I don't really think they can do this. Boris is now going to get put under by the disruption, and Analog, yeah. This is too much. As you said, way too greedy. Boris will be taken down. Elmisho isn't even going to die. Gardic's not dying as well. The shackle from Analog locks him down, and I don't know about that one. You just dove past a tier 1 tower at the 4.5-minute mark with 2 heroes going into 3. It just felt like a recipe for disaster, and Hokori are able to make him pay.
And this is what I am slightly concerned with, where I Annihilate, you need a rune to rotate with the Tiny, or you need a pretty good timing or a smoke play. You need something outside to really allow this hero to make those rotations, whereas Analog just walks. He just says, hey, they're diving top. Okay, I was going to get the bounty rune anyway. Sure, free kills. And that's where this wind will really find an easier time. And we'll see if Monkeys does end up getting punished top, because that'll be really the super punish. And Misho, well, he went for the body blocks. He just missed it, but I think Boris is dead.
Yeah, Boris may still be going down here. Lumiere, okay, he's not even the one who gets the damage, and it's going to be El Misho and now Jubei.
Oh, and
He'll pop
Jubei,
the
you're blocked up
attendants,
too.
but the attendants aren't enough. He's still taking way too much damage. Lucent Beam comes in.
Dead.
Stacking up the point.
He got greedy, but I think still gone.
Yeah, that Tombstone was not necessary. Gardic, though, he'll throw it out there on cooldown again. But hey, Lumiere gets yet another kill. That's his 3rd of the match now. So the aggression from Hokori really is working. And at this point, you're getting such a strong start, I think, in this sort of top lane that Lumiere may be able to sort of get involved a little bit earlier. And that might buy time for the Broodmother to then recover. So Vitaly's lane is being sacrificed, but if he can sort of pass the baton off to his teammates and then sort of fall back and try to catch up himself,
Vitaly,
that could work pretty well. But yeah,
he's actually dead.
He needed to go a little bit further into the tree line. Instead, he sort of stays too shallow, which allows Monkeys to just keep on chasing. That felt weird. He just, I guess he thought he was just going to be faster, but the Viper is just directly on him the whole time.
Yeah, and he tried to maybe juke out of the trees, but also Monkeys just knowledge in the 1v1. He knows that he's going to get the level up on the creep kill, so just immediately pushes his advantage. And you are completely right, though. Once Vitaly hits level 6, Monkeys, as much as he can try, and he is going for those boots of travel first, you'll have him incredibly quickly. He sort of needs to cut and run. The Viper does not do very much versus that Broodmother hero, aside from this sort of awful lane that Flea has definitely set up for his teammate. And here's what I was worried about. Here's the wind.
Analog will rotate in. They've got the shackle ready-made into the focus fire. Vitaly does have to back off due to that DOT, but he will survive. While Monkeys, I don't think he's making it out of this one. He's going to try his best to dance here underneath the tower, and well, he's not dead just yet. Vitaly, you got to be careful here. Monkeys could turn around for the damage, but Analog's going to be able to make it happen. So Monkeys forever taken down. Meanwhile, up in the top lane, I believe Gardic traded himself out for Flea, as they do find that kill as well. So it's a 2-for-1 trade across the map. Lumiere does briefly get stunned up by the missile, but at this point, I don't think they can punish this. Jubei comes in for the slow, but it's just not going to happen. Lumiere is able to walk away.
Yeah, and they see Annihilate in the river, has a regen rune. We'll see what the 8-minute has in store for him, but this is what I was worried about with the wind pick. It just feels like those plays kind of come very naturally, and versus the Viper, we keep seeing this win as just the perfect counter. And cool, Annihilate, immediately going to do all of Gardic's HP. Kind of sad for the Undying. Might see him go all the way back home, but Haste Rune on the Tiny. This is exactly what they need. If Annihilate can make plays, that's exactly what he needs. Oh, Vitaly. Oh, he got him.
Run down again. He's dead again. Okay.
Yeah, the ward giving them the vision, and he pings it out. Yeah, I think you should have a little bit of a better idea where it is, but Monkeys continuing to punish this Broodmother.
Yeah, really being effective beyond the point you would normally expect. As Annihilate, he wants in. Can they catch Lumiere? They've got the homing missile on. He wanted that so bad. He's not going to get it, but now Analog pushing into the fight. Gardic and Omisha are going to come through as well. That Tombstone's not going to last very long. Immediately taken down. Meanwhile, Annihilate was still in onto Analog. It wasn't able to find the kill, and now, if you're 2-based, it's probably time to back off. They've used quite a lot of their firepower. They weren't able to get this, but now the call down, well, it doesn't really do much. They steal some last hits, but they need more than this. But they are in onto Gardic. Okay,
yeah,
able to take down the Undying.
Quite the wild fight here. Lumiere only has 1 point in the Moonglaive, so just sits there and pumps the Mom to farm the stack and doesn't get punished for it, and it looks like the aggression will now sort of cease. But yeah, 2-based, they want to keep making these plays, and again, that was just from the Haste Rune on the Tiny. He needs to keep getting those types of runes, and then he's going to be able to maintain this sort of aggression. He even pings out the ward. They know that they have this sort of defensive vision up already, so might need to rethink where they make their plays, as I guess Vitaly, he's just mode recovery now. Everybody is sort of chilling in this bot lane. This is the easy one, but Annihilate, they want to punish this Brood again. They want to try and find Vitaly being a little bit too greedy.
Monkeys trying to scout this one out. Vitaly's going to push forward, but this may be the mistake, or maybe not. Here comes Analog in with the focus fire. Monkeys is dead, and Annihilate, he's not going to get here in time.
Tiny.
He does go in, though, for the kill, so it is going to be a trade-off. That's nice for him. Avalanche Toss combo brings down Analog, but you lose Monkeys, but at this point, I mean, you're looking at sort of the relative net worth between the two. Actually, that one kind of goes Hokori's way a bit, but at least you find that kill. That is going to count for something for 2-base. Those are the kind of plays that, as you said, they need to continue to make for this Tiny. He is the one who lives. He's the one who gets most of the gold for that pickoff.
Yeah, and if he can continue to make those rotations, get this Blink Dagger as fast as he can, this Tiny is going to be able to sort of own across the map, and that's where this it sort of fixes the matchup for them, where you always have that burst damage for the wind. However, they're just going to smoke and immediately go bottom. There are only a few options here. They're not going to catch the Viper because he TP'd with his teammates to make this smoke play, and they're trying to bait this regen rune top, but Boris is just going to take it, and they might scout out some stacks, but there's nothing here. They already farmed it, so they're going to be pretty unhappy if they aren't able to get the Gart to Kiro mid.
Meanwhile, Annihilate going to get hit up by the Bola and the Purge in the bottom lane. They're directly in onto him, as the Focus Fire will be deployed as well, and Annihilate will be taken down. So Hokori, their gank will work. The opposing gank is going very poorly. Monkeys are too far in, and Lumiere simply turns around with the Eclipse. That's going to be 2 kills for Hokori across the map. As their gank works, 2-base kind of falls apart there.
And it's just the ease of execution, and you have to be careful with this Luna. It just feels like that was the easiest rotation Lumiere could have made, and doesn't give up the kill. Yeah, the stacks are just massive, and Elmisho is going to get most of these if he gets 5 stacks up, and see if he takes it.
So tempting. Okay, he does take it. Analog's going to be able to clean up the last two, but regardless of whether it's Elmisho or Analog who gets those last hits, those were meant to go to the 2-base side. Instead, Hokori just sort of jack it all for themselves, and they're going to be able to grab... I believe the bounty rune's coming up here as well, so even more gold into their hands.
And they see the tiny again.
Oh god. Are they really? Are they going to try for it? Last time... No, last time they made the
with the...
play.
Oh.
Avalanche toss comes through, though, so Elmisho is dead, but the bullet does come in. Is there a focus fire up on Wind Ranger? Yeah. Annihilate dead. Now, oh god, Flea? Okay, gonna get hit up by the Shackle, but with this many heroes TPing in, Vitaly realizes he really doesn't want to stick around for much longer, but I don't know if he has a choice. Monkey's Forever is gonna hit him up, dropping down the Toxin into the Viper Strike, so Vitaly just has to hold his ground. He's not gonna make it. Flea hits him up with the Laguna, and Boris is in for the kill. So they do lose Annihilate, but they're able to take down both the Shadow Demon and the Broodmother in exchange. That, honestly, is gonna feel relatively solid for him. The only problem is the Tiny's progress towards the Blink does get sort of set back with that death.
And 4 heroes, 3 TPs, and it's Analog again. If Monkeys goes up to this tower, he dies. He needs heroes to stand behind him, but with how heavy set they are now bottom, it feels like they have to play there. And all of this is time for Lumiere to just get absolutely uncontested free farm. He is just going to continue to accelerate at a rate that is, up until this Ag's just going to be faster than the Gyro can really manage.
Yeah. The Gyrocopter, though, is getting pretty close to that Aghanim Scepter, so that is going to be in his hands relatively soon. But even once the Aghanim Scepter is picked up, he is going to have to spend a little bit of time just catching up to where the Luna is net worth-wise. His middle lane, Gardic, going to get himself jumped in on. Monkeys and Annihilate will make their move, and they do manage to find a relatively quick pick off there. But now we do see Analog sort of rotating his way back in. He could look to mount a response, but the LSA locks him down first. Analog, he's just dead. Annihilate in there for the Avalanche Toss, and they do manage to pick that one up. Good setup from Flea to really kickstart that one, and Analog just out of position.
Yeah, and you have to be careful. Elmisho, they're giving away their position, but Elmisho is trying to be incredibly confident. He has an Aether Lens, he's juking around, but might be a toss back onto the creep wave. Nobody... Okay.
We're going to see it coming in now. Yeah, they do find it. Gardic, though, just going to push directly into that fight, but there's really not a whole lot to do. They TP out once with Annihilate. Flea is actually just straight up faster than Gardic, and there is a Haste Rune that he's going to hold for Monkeys Forever as well. So, Gardic, I don't really know about that one. Tombstone and Flesh Golem both thrown down, and he really doesn't make a whole lot happen with that. Wasn't able to save any teammates, wasn't able to get any kills.
Yeah, and we see continuously just this Luna farming up, almost has that Mantis style already. Vitaly pushes in the bot wave. Whenever they stack up too many heroes, it just feels like Hokori are able to play the map a little bit more efficiently than TOOBASED are now. Even though you do have those boots of travel on the Viper, you almost have that Blink Dagger on the Tiny. About that maybe 15-minute mark, it's going to be coming out pretty soon. But you have to be careful, and I don't think there's going to be any setup mid, but we might see Analog. He finished up his Maelstrom just a moment ago, but probably queue up that BKB, and then the plays are just going to be even easier for that Wind. But they're going back to Vitaly's lane.
Smoking up his 3 as they'll make their way over. Meanwhile, some items coming out there, really on both sides, but the Blink and the Atos finished off by the Tiny as well as the Vipers. So that is going to get them a little bit more to work with here, but Hokori have 4 in the lane, and Boris is alone. Jackal comes through, it's going to latch onto him. They drop down the Tombstone, Focus Fire thrown out as well, and Boris is dead. He's going to be able to clean up some of these Spiderlings with the call down, but that's really not going to be worth his own death. And now, Jubei gets picked off as well. Lumiere comes in with the Eclipse. They'll find that kill, and Annihilate sort of trapped up in the middle of it. He is going to be able to fall back, but this is not over just yet. Monkeys is still going to get slowed up, and he will be taken down here as Vitaly sort of leads the charge. He gets the kill. And TOOBASED, they just didn't really show enough respect to that. They didn't see the movement from Hokori until Boris has already jumped in on, and I don't know. Boris going down, I don't know how much you were going to be able to do about that, but losing the Viper and Jubei afterwards just feels like they were sticking around too long after their teammate had already been picked off. But now,
Elmisho, what a disruption.
Big disruption there. Is it going to be enough to save his own life, though? He is still going to get tossed back, so he will fall, but that gets the Wind Ranger out, and now, got to be a little bit careful there. Annihilate was pushing towards Gardic and Lumiere, so he's going to sort of turn it around and return to his own side of the river, but at least they get a kill there. Annihilate's able to sort of make something happen for himself, but a lot of momentum has sort of been lost after that last fight. TOOBASED are going to have to make a move to try and recover, but they take the tier 1 tower, and now they're sort of inching their way further into the south side jungle, looking to see if there's any sort of stragglers who are just sitting in here looking for extra farm, but no such hero for Hokori. Right now they're sort of maintaining a more defensive position.
And you saw there with the Atos as well, finished up on Monkeys. It doesn't matter. He tries to get an on the Lumiere, very simply pops the Manta style, and they're staying around mid. They're trying to call the bluff. They see the ward, and Vitaly, he doesn't feel confident to Avatos him.
But now, I mean, Monkeys, he's so slow now thanks to the Bola, so may want to be careful. The Tombstone gets thrown onto him, and yeah, okay, that's the best bet for him. Simply TP out at that point. You weren't going to be able to make it out on foot. You're so slow in that fight, but while he makes it out, Analog tracks down Boris.
And yeah, time and time again, this Wind is continuing to find the rotation she needs to make, and you do have this Blink Dagger Tiny, but there's a pipe on Vitaly. He doesn't care about you. You might be able to burst Gartic, but even him, he has a medallion, he has a crown. It feels like the target really only is this Wind, but she continuously is catching off guard your teammates. You have to really get some vision down, find some plays to be made, because as of right now, the entire map is just going Hokori.
Yeah, they really are starting to sort of turn up the heat at this point. They're finding kills, they're farming out much better than their opponents, and they haven't gotten in onto any of those tier 2 towers just yet, but you got to assume that is going to be a target for them relatively soon. They do still need to get through the tier 1 mid first, but they're going to try for this kill mid. Monkeys is... Nope, he's just completely locked down every time. Analog in for the shackle. They don't get the kill this time, though. Annihilate and Flea are there to sort of back their teammate up, so they won't quite be able to make that play happen, but you see how almost casually they can get in there. The Brood hits up with the Bola, they get the shackle to follow it up, and maybe they go in, maybe they don't. They don't really have to care too much one way or the other. They just have these opportunities over and over again, thanks to the play from the cores in general, but Analog in particular. He is just so unbelievably strong right now, despite the fact that you take a look at his net worth, he's a little ways down that list, but still able to make these plays even with the farming priority going towards those other cores right now.
And really, just Vitaly, now you have that SD Luna, you pop the Manta Illusions, you get that tower relatively for free, probably going to make your way, over towards that BKB, and once he has it, the game plan is basically out the window for TOOBASED. They need to now catch him off guard in the Avatos, into LSA. You have to have picture-perfect timing, and Elmisho needs to be in a position where he can't help his teammate. Elmisho, okay, he's going to get the disruption off in Lumiere.
Lucent Beam will connect. There's going to be the Purge as well, and yeah, Flea's gone. Lumiere will find that one. Meanwhile, Vitaly going to get himself caught out a little bit here, though. Monkeys and Annihilate sort of make the move in onto him, but now Lumiere joins the fight. That's going to just be a straight-up Eclipse in their face. Is it enough damage, though? As of right now, not quite, but the defensive disruption will be there to keep him alive. Lumiere, though, is still not going to make it out. Annihilate hits him up, but Analog was able to get in there for a return kill. They'll take down Monkeys, and now they want to turn their attention on to Boris. The Shackle, though, won't latch, but they're still trying to chase as best as they can. Bola comes out. Boris dropping low. Boris will be taken down.
And here comes the Brood.
Yeah, Vitaly is a big, angry spider, and simply TOOBASED want nothing to do with it. They're going to fall back as they can, but Annihilate, he's still kind of on the run here. They're throwing out the poisons. They don't see him just yet, but there, that courier flyover gets in the vision. The Shackle is actually going to get sort of canceled out by the disruption, though, but at the end of the day, they do still lock the Tiny down, and they will be able to finish him off.
And he was trying to be smart there. I think there was a chance where he would be able to blink out, but he wanted to find that immediate turn onto Analog, try and burst him, felt like he was sort of cornered, but instead, Elmisho again, immediate disruption, doesn't matter, easy game. And unfortunately, you did lose Lumiere there. He did get the missile on him and did sort of walk up the high ground into 3 heroes, but it doesn't feel like it's going to slow him down very much. And once you get that BKB, then you are really out of options. And you just look at this bottom lane. He sends the Manta there. Then Elmisho takes the wave, pops that with the SD disruption, and they're just going to start farming everywhere.
Yeah, there's just really nothing that TOOBASED can do right now to match this sort of farming potential. The Gyrocopter is doing everything he possibly can, but there's only so much that Boris can really do here. Even with the Flat Cannon and that Aghanim Scepter upgrade, he is getting pretty severely outpaced by that Luna. So the question for TOOBASED is how much more can they find for Boris, and the other part of this is who else steps up here? He's sitting in second place in terms of the net worth, but the other 2 cores are pretty far down there. Although, okay, Gartic a little bit too far forward. He does get caught out, so that's going to be a nice kill. It goes into Boris's hands as well, so more progress towards that BKB, but they need more. Annihilate looking for it, blinking forward, getting Elmisho with the Avalanche Toss, and that's going to be both of the supports taken down. So solid maneuvers from TOOBASED, but at a certain point, they need kills onto core heroes. The supports are nice, but They really do need to sort of hit on those more valuable targets.
Yeah, and you do get El Misho, which honestly is pretty nice, just because you do take that SD out. That's how these fights should really be getting executed from the 2-base side, and they're definitely not down for the count. Their cores are being able to farm. Boris specifically has more or less completely recovered. He was able to get that Aghanim Scepter in a decent amount of time, even though he did have that pretty quick death right after completing it. But now, building towards that building towards that BKB, once he has it, he doesn't need to worry about that Eclipse, doesn't need to worry about that Soul Catcher, so we might see him try to get a little bit more aggressive, but it feels like they still need sort of this double BKB. Once Annihilate can sit in the fights and tank a little bit of damage, then I think TOOBASED might be able to sort of clam together a better team fight, because as of right now, even though you have quite a lot of farm, especially on the Lina, it feels like you need that next set of items where Hokori, yeah, they're just going to go into the pit. They're going to try and accelerate the game plan.
Looking for Roche here.
They do know about it, though. They're bringing the creep in.
They spot it. The question is, when do they make their move? They're starting to bring heroes around, so they could give this a go, but actually...
They know the HP, but yeah, they're getting forced off of it. The tomb, it's too strong.
Just pushing them back here. Meanwhile, what is this? I Annihilate. Okay. He's in there. Oh, they spotted him. No. That's a problem. Analog is going to be able to get down the... Actually, the Shackle doesn't latch. It's not going to matter, though. I Annihilate just does not have the HP to stand up in this fight. He will be taken down as El Misho gets the kill, and now Hokori should be able to just take Roshan. There's really nothing more that TOOBASED could do, but Monkey's... He's going to get jumped in on here. He's trying to get himself away. The illusion is sort of catching up to him, but the actual heroes won't be able to. But while that was happening, Analog pushed in with El Misho. They catch out Jubei. They're going to be able to take down that Enchantress. So now they found a couple of kills. They've got the Aegis in the hands of their Luna. But we do have a pause. Hokori need a little bit of time, but Hokori are now set up in almost a perfect position to continue pushing forward. They've got the BKB up on the Luna. They've got 2 lives on her as well. So realistically, Simply TOOBASED are not going to be really willing to fight directly into that.
Yeah, and it does feel like now Lumiere, man, this guy does not play around. Doesn't take the Lucent Beam mini stun, doesn't take the Lucent Beam cooldown, probably isn't going to get the shard. We just got a full-fledged numbers man over here. But building towards that butterfly, once he gets it, again, we saw in that previous game, outpacing Boris, where Boris will not have those MKB components in any amount of time, whereas it feels like if they're able to keep on exuding this pressure on the map, Lumiere is going to have that butterfly in no time. And after that, it feels like the push is just going to come a little bit too strong, because Vitaly, he's gone for that Divine Llama build, and I'm not sure if Divine Llama was the first. He probably wasn't, but just having the pipe and the mech working towards those Greaves makes your allies so much harder to kill, and you will struggle, or you'll struggle to sort of find those targets. You won't be able to get that burst damage out, and you don't have an AA, you don't have a Snapfire, you don't have that supplemental magic damage. You have this Lina, and while that Laguna Blade is fantastic, up until Flea gets this Aghanim Scepter, which is sort of coming around the horizon, I really don't think they can kill anyone on the Hokori side. The save is just a little bit too much there with this Shadow Demon Undying that they somehow got away with, because Analog really just carried them through that lull in the early game. Really, if Analog doesn't make those decisions, he doesn't make those rotations, he doesn't hold down the aggression from TOOBASED, and El Misho and Undying, they're not making those heavy rotations. They are not playmaking heroes, really. While you can disrupt into a Lucent Beam, that's it. You don't have that combo, but they've somehow made it work.
Yeah, and I think you really sort of nailed it there perfectly. Hokori did not pick up a lineup that was going to be able to do much aggressively with their supports, but between Analog and now sort of Vitaly's play as well, they've been able to get away with it. You had lane-oriented supports, and you were still able to play aggressively, so that's something that TOOBASED really weren't able to sort of match up with, at least not in the early stages of the game. So now they find themselves down by 5k here, and their supports are still trying to build up. We talked about that sort of Aghanim Scepter play on the Lina, and as you mentioned, it is technically coming along. There's about 3,300 in the bank there for the Lina, so could get it relatively quickly. If you spend out that money, though, obviously the Lina won't then have buyback, but in this situation, I don't know. Maybe the upgrade for the Laguna might be worth just sort of sacrificing your buyback, because Simply TOOBASED are going to want to try and make some sort of statement play, but Well, as of right now, they haven't really been able to do it. It would have been the fight around the Roche pit, obviously, but that doesn't quite go their way. And even that one, I don't know, that felt so frustrating. Annihilate was in a position to maybe sort of go in there and try and start something, but he just gets spotted out just that little bit too quickly, and Hokori sort of punish him for it. So if you're two-based, it doesn't look good right now, but there are still some ways in which they can, or had been able to sort of even things up a little bit, and just the slightest missteps have kind of cost them here, which to a certain extent sort of acts as a bit of a silver lining. You do still have a chance to get yourself back in. It's not necessarily all doom and gloom for them, but the execution has to take a step forward for them, and we also need to be able to get back into the game. Still not entirely sure what this pause was actually for in the first place. Hokori were the squad to pause, but nobody's DC'd, and nobody's really mentioned anything. But until we hear from the admin, it's not really going to be a time constraint by any means, but always a little bit mysterious when we get the pause and there's no communication from the squads.
Analog drawing, doing, I guess whatever. There's not much to do right now.
Exactly
I don't even know what that is. But silver lining, I suppose, is just that you can always kill this wind. If you can get on top of her, you can avatoss her to death, especially if you have that nether toxin. And times like these, I wish Divine Llama was in the game. Or is it Divine Llama or Yuma that can do the trapezoids on his map like perfectly?
That's Yuma who does that. I'm not sure if he's the only one, but he's the only one I've seen do it in this event, and I'm still not entirely sure how that works, but he just draws those lines so rapidly. Maybe it is just manual, but it feels so like timed and uniform that it probably is some sort of trick that he's using. But yeah, we don't really get to see that here. Lots of other scribbling, but not going to be that exact pattern. But scribble time is over. We are back into the match.
Ooh,
so
Flea.
yeah, Flea immediately in danger. Can Lumiere spot him? Well, yes, but not in time to actually cancel out that TP. So Flea is able to get away, but now Lumiere and Analog, you've got to push onto the tier 2. This tower's already sort of taken a beating so far, and it's almost immediately going to die. No reason to glyph this one. They're just going to hold it for the potential high ground defense here. Misho's going to create up those illusions. Lumiere's still got the Manta here as well, so you've got heroes and potentially 4 illusions going to take some shots at the tier 3. As they are going to push their way forward.
Yeah. Oh, just casually throwing out everything. I mean, he will need to be healed up by his teammates, but yeah, this is just sort of the assured push. It did do about 350 damage. You pop the mech as well, and they're not going to play around. Gardic says, no, let's not do this. Get the lanes out. Don't show too much anywhere, and Lumiere will stick around, probably to kill this tier 3 tower. They need to wait for the waves, though, and we might see sort of that split push play coming out. They really want this trifecta of BKBs before they really stake the game on the next fight. So we'll see if Annihilate is able to get his in sort of a reasonable amount of time, as I think both Monkeys and Boris are much closer. Boris has his already, and Monkeys is only 1 component away, just a few 100 gold away. But the push is coming. It is inevitable, and it feels like the 2-base, they might just not be in the cards for them. We'll have to see if they are able to get some sort of defense, because they're just creep cut. Their mode, try and get the waves in, do whatever you can, and they haven't expended the resources to really reset the map on the Hokori side, but it feels like they also don't need to. It's 2-base that can't take the fight yet. Hokori are sort of wanting you to engage on them.
Yeah, it just feels like at this point Hokori are kind of tightening the noose around the necks of 2-base. They've taken tier 2s now top and mid. They got a little bit of damage onto the tier 3 up top as well, so they're just going to keep on sort of walking it in, so to speak. Just pushing out these lanes bit by bit, forcing 2-base into these sort of split push, creep cutting plays, and that is going to buy 2-base time, and as you said, maybe once they get these BKBs up on all their heroes.
Oh, Analog. He's looking for Boris.
Ooh.
Boris with the Clawing Blade is sort of, yeah, he's kind of went a little bit past him. Okay, Boris is getting away with this for now.
Sitting on 3 TPs, might just want to use one of them, but considering
He's
how
gonna
far
show
away,
on the wave.
Yeah, how far away Analog is, maybe he gets away with this, but feels a little bit risky. Meanwhile, up in the top lane, Monkeys is able to get himself away, falls back into that tree line, but now Analog,
he's hunting.
he knows, can he do it? He needs the shackle. He's got
He doesn't have a
reinforcements
crit
coming,
stick.
though.
Yeah, he needs help. He knows he can't get it, but if he can make Boris pop that BKB, that's also a win. He has to go now. Okay, he's out.
Yeah. Smart play from Boris. He's not taking any chances. BKB first, then TP yourself home. We've seen a lot of mistakes like that in the past where the player sort of feels like they're safe and they just sort of go for the TP out and then immediately end up regretting it. So it is an unfortunate means, or unfortunate way rather, to have to spend the 9-second charge, but the alternative was getting jumped in on the wrong side of the map with 0 backup. So you'll spend your 9-second charge and not eat the death. But now Hokori, they know the BKB's down, they know that the Gyrocopter has just TP'd himself home, so they're going to push their way forward. Final tier 2 tower should be falling in that bottom lane.
And unfortunately for Annihilate, not having his BKB, having his peers sort of follow him up there, he's the hero that has to sit in the base. He can't afford to get caught outside. And Lumiere, I don't think they're going to pop the... Yeah, they're going to save the disruption now. And actually, they're going to get him out of that Laguna range. Flea is being very patient. He wants to sort of pop this Aegis so that way they might be able to get that reinitiation, because they are just looking for space. You don't even have your Viper here. He's trying to get up those tier 3 items maybe before this game does sort of come to a close, and the Titan Sliver will get passed off to Boris most likely, but here we go. They're in on the racks. They broke the tier 3. This is when it gets so hard to even just walk up to the racks.
The Aegis, though, has now expired, so Lumiere no longer has that second life available, and TOOBASED a little bit fortunate there. With the Aegis going down, the Luna actually isn't going to immediately push back in, so it's only the tier 3 that's taken there, and TOOBASED may have an opportunity to try and regroup and make something happen at this point, but they're going to have to catch somebody off guard at this stage. It doesn't feel like they can just sort of charge their way forward. They really do need the element of surprise on their side, which presumably would be where the Tiny sort of plays into it, but Annihilate still doesn't have the BKB, so he can take his opponents by surprise, but then the joke's going to be on him. He won't have the magic immunity, so he won't be able to actually do anything further beyond that first initiation. So they just have to keep on waiting, but the Tiny... gotta be careful there. Vitaly and Almisha were sort of pushing onto him, so this is the problem. You would think the Tiny, he's, what, maybe 1,000, a little bit over that away from it, so just go and farm, right? But where can he just go and farm to that's actually going to be safe? Hokori are sort of prowling around in all of the locations that he would want to move into.
Yeah, and Lumiere... Ooh, Boris, so close. And actually...
Wait a minute, did they actually get him? No, he's able to get himself away.
He is greedy. He didn't...
Oh!
He actually died to the Purge. He got greedy. He's not in the base. He's not in the fountain. He TP'd to the tier 3 mid. That is awful. That feels so terrible.
Why? Like, just... Actually, no. I was going to say I can understand. I can't understand that. Just TP to the fountain, man. There's no fight that was going down there, and even if there were going to be one, his BKB had maybe 1 second left when that TP completes, so you're not going to immediately push into the fight. That just feels...
And now onto the mid wave. There's no glyph.
Unnecessary risk taken by Boris. He would have to buy back here if he wants to fight. Oh my god, Jubei.
Yep.
Well, that's a problem. He has a buyback here as well, but Hokori, they're just going to charge in. They're looking for that middle lane of racks. Lumiere and all the illusions just bouncing the glaives around like crazy. And they are going to be able to burn their way through the middle lane. Now they want this bottom lane as well, but Almisho is going to get tossed back here. He does have the disruption for himself, though. And now look at the shackle from Analog. Absolutely perfect. Annihilate taken down. Monkey's BKB is not going to matter. He's just taking too much damage. He goes down as well. And at this point, if you're TOOBASED, any buyback you have, I think you have to commit. As Annihilate, did he just toss his teammate? Flea's going to be the one sort of thrown there, and it doesn't really accomplish a whole lot. So bottom lane of racks now taken as well. Lumiere is going to get hit up here by that... Well, okay, by the Atos, but he doesn't care. Just going to charge his way forward with the Eclipse, and TOOBASED are getting just corralled back towards their own fountain at this point.
And they can't pop the BKBs. If they commit anything already, Monkeys Forever can't really walk up to that wave. And Lumiere, oh, he didn't get the toss back on the Tiny. I think he's just going to get cleaned up.
Annihilate's dead, no buyback available, and again, corralled back towards their fountain, and now Hokori just going to dive it. If there's no GG coming out, they're going to look for it. Monkey's taken down. Analog just going in for the kill. Not going to be able to get it, though, as the Laguna will finally push him back, but now...
Yeah, GG's called.
There it is, yeah. One last death on Flea as the GG will be deployed, and simply TOOBASED. Well, they didn't have it in them to sort of hold the line there. That final push in just completely shatters what was left of their defenses.
Yeah, and Hokori really showing that they're sort of the I think the most chaotic team in this tournament. Watching that 2-0 versus Infamous really sort of set the pace for them as a team. And Analog, he put the team on his back for this one. And exactly what I thought would happen sort of ended up happening, where he's out rotating your Tiny. Your Tiny needs those runes. He needs to get a little bit lucky. He needs those to propel himself forward. And it just wasn't enough. Analog out rotated him. He was able to really put it down on the Vipers game. And even though they had that interesting strategy, they broke down the trees, they made it so Vitaly couldn't really approach the wave. They tried to counterpick the Brood. Actually, no, they didn't even try to counterpick the Brood. They tried to get it the worst time possible gameplay wise, and it didn't matter. He hit creeps, he walked away. Lumiere, again, having this ultra farm hero, 9-1 and 12. Even though he died once, it felt like really there was never that depth that sets him so far back, or his team so far back, that TOOBASED had a shot to pull back really anything. So Hokori 2-0, and I think that sort of cements them in the playoff. But now they've got to go versus D2 Hustlers. If they can keep this momentum going into this next series, then I think Hokori are looking like one of those playoff locks.
Let's see. It does, with that win, they do push above D2 Hustlers, I think, or not quite above, excuse me. That is a mistake on my part. They're now 1 win behind D2 Hustlers. So that is going to lead them into the next series. Hokori are going to be facing off against, actually, Ego Boys for their final matchup.
You are right. You are right.
Yeah, sorry about that. I had to double check that. But yes, Hokori going to be in action once again, and at this point, I mean, what a matchup for them, right? Ego Boys at this point are already sort of guaranteed to go down to the lower bracket, excuse me. They've lost really 10 of their 12 games right now, so if you were looking for kind of maybe an easy setup for the Hokori side, this certainly looks like it, but that's always going to be maybe a bit of a double-edged sword. Hokori are going to very clearly be the favorite for that series, but Ego Boys could really revel in that role of underdog, and if they could take maybe a game or two away for Hokori, then that final slot between themselves and D2 Hustlers would still very much be up in the air. So we'll see how that one plays out. Hokori certainly have some momentum, but Ego Boys have a chance to maybe ruin the day of their regional rival. So we are going to be pushing into that series in just a little bit here. For now, though, we will be taking a short break, but when we return, it'll be that final best of 2 of the day. Hokori going up against Ego Boys.